Welcome back to the Scripting Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Paris, CEO and founder of Superhuman Prospecting and H2H. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that I don't know if I've ever seen discussed on any platform or in any book about scripting, and specifically cold calling, which has been the hot topic for us so far. And that is the quantity of words used when writing a script. The quantity of words used when writing a script. And so far, we've talked a lot about conversation structure and the bones of a call and ensuring that we separate that from personality and knowing the checkpoints that we're trying to hit off before we end a call and ensure its quality. We talk a lot about email. We talk about the number of words we should use in an email. I hear it all the time. LinkedIn posts, I see it in publications and content about how many words should you write in a cold email. And it changes as time goes on, doesn't it? I remember about 15, 20 years ago when email marketing first started and there was email blasts, you would see that people would write these white papers and send them to you. They'd be paragraphs on paragraphs about a product or service and a study, and that was acceptable. People were getting responses. But as emails started to propagate in inboxes, the amount of time that people would spend was less and less on reading those emails. So you started to see those word limits come down, 250, 150, and now they're recommending text level or the shortest amount of words with a message that hits possible. 75 words maybe, right? Because there's so much email, there's so much digital consumption that our brains just can't handle it, and we trip out very easily. But that's great that that kind of information is provided. People have studied the cold email, they've studied content, and they see that there's only so much that can be said to keep a high level of results or maximize results. But one thing I've never heard is, well, how many words do you say in a cold call? I don't think I've seen one post, one blog about the amount of words that you should be writing in your scripts for cold calling. And I guess the argument is like, well, it's a conversation. You can't have a certain number of word limit in a conversation. And, I think that that's not the whole picture. It's not that I don't disagree, but there are certainly things that you can do to limit and prepare yourself and set yourself up for success on a call by ensuring that you are trimming down or extending the amount of words and the quality of those words before you get into a call. And it's something that we've done over the last couple of years with our H2H scripts. So for both the consultative conversation framework, the one that's meant for folks behind a desk or people who have more time or can have a conversation, we have limit of words for each component and subcomponent. And then we also have that for our no bull script, which is meant for those people who are on the go or in saturated marketplaces and you have to get value in quickly and ask for that next step. We've also quantified that. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today, because this is something that I really think is another angle that can help shape our cold call confidence and also deliver higher results. We started to study the amount of words by listening to recordings of different reps in different industries. And the way that we were able to come up with this is that there is a kind of balance between analysis and practice, testing and feedback, to really get a nice range to see where our top team members were performing in that quantity of words. So I want to talk a little bit about that today, because I think it can help you prepare for your calls or for your team members who you're training, and give you just some limits as to what we've seen as successful, and then work with that. I'm not saying all industries are the same or all styles are the same. And I think that's something that, I want to address in this podcast, is that while we have our own structure, there's not just one. I really hope to God there's not just one type of structure, because I think what that would mean is that if we've figured it all out here, then something there's certainly something wrong out there in the marketplace that we should be converting way higher. But there's so much more opportunity out there to convert and to reach higher levels that it's going to take the world of experts and sales developers to move that bar higher in conversion. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's speak and look at the different quantities that should be said throughout a cold call. So what we'll do is we'll use the H to H cold calling method as our study guide and kind of our sample for this. So let's just do a quick review. The consultative conversation framework. This, again, is a structure that we have at H to H that our team at Superhuman Prospecting uses and other teams across the world use who have been a part of our consulting side. But when we look at the consultative conversation framework, remember, there's 4 components in pretty much any one of our frameworks, and it's just how the components are switched around. So we have a quick prop, we have a hone in, we have a calling prop, and we have a next steps. Those are the 4 primary components. We also have subcomponents. We also have a bridge statement, which is kind of in between the hone in and the calling prop. And we also have discovery questions that can be optional but are recommended, and an extended pitch, which is optional but sometimes recommended based on the conversation. So those are a couple of the subcomponents that we have. But let's talk about the primaries. So we have the quick prop. We'll start from the top here. A quick prop, just to bring it back, is a quick description about what you do and a light benefit or feature. So the idea is to get them in the right frame of mind to think in and really just get them into the conversation. This is primarily a defensive part. So what I mean is when we're getting into a cold call, they're not expecting it, they're busy, and so we have to respect that time and that headspace that they're in and try to shift them over, right? So any guesses on how many words should be in the quick prop? That's what I thought. So we have 25 to 40. I'm getting super technical here. All right, so let me read it to you in what we have, and I'll share with you some examples that could be too less or too little, and then too much. So it reads as something like this using SHP's script. Hi, my name is Ryan with Superhuman Prospecting. We provide outsourced cold calling and appointment setting to companies across the United States to help generate more leads for their sales pipeline. That's it. So many times I hear that first initial value prop as just a complete vocab dump, a word pitch, or excuse me, a just pitch vomiting all over the place, just absolute slammed with words when we first get that decision maker on the phone. You've probably experienced it, you may have said it, you may have heard it, but it's too much if we were to go 50 to 100 words there. But we get excited, we're scared that they're going to hang up, so we want to keep talking just to see if something's going to click with them so they can respond and say, oh yeah, that sounds amazing. But how often does that happen? Especially in the first few seconds when we just got them. We have to slow our brain down, and that's the reason why we've really, really limited that. And you still have to get to the hone in, which is the next part, which is a question. Counts as a discovery question, but is a very specific question that we talk about. So you still have to get that out. So there's no way that we can overdo the first few seconds of a call. The most impactful parts when someone's on edge and figuring out if they still want to be on the phone. 25 to 40 words. It's easy for us to say we provide outsourced cold call appointment setting to companies across the United States to help them generate leads for their sales pipeline. We also have US-based team members. They're trained fully on a 3-layered sales staff, and we have a quality assurance person. We're way different than a lot of companies out there Would you be interested in learning more about us? Oh, I'm just cringing saying that because that's just what I hear so much when I listen to cold calls out in LinkedIn or from other reps. Just they keep going, they keep going, they keep going. What value is going to hit? What value is going to hit? Wait. I haven't heard anything. Are you interested? Click. No, I'm not interested. We're good. You just stole time from them right there. That's how it feels to them. You just rob them of their time by pitch vomiting all over them. You have a few seconds. If they freely picked up the phone, you have a few seconds to get them into a conversation and allow them to see, or at least to think that there is value coming. There's something for them here that's worth listening to. And you have to work with that natural law. So 25 to 40 words. Then we go to the hone in. Are you using an outsourced lead generation solution currently to help continue your growth, or have you considered it in the past? This one actually might be a little bit longer than what you'd anticipate. We're saving ourselves a little bit in the quick prop so we can ask more about them. Yes, you heard that right. When I hear a lot of calls, there's a huge emphasis on us and our value and what we do, but not a lot on the prospect, right? If I were to continue that conversation and, we can generate 1 to 100 leads per month, and we have worked with companies like Moen and Amerisource Bergen and Uber and Amazon. Well, then I'm just talking about me and it's all about me. And then the next thing I can say is, what are you doing for your marketing? Or are you interested? Can I set an appointment up? And it's just all about you the whole time until that final part. And you're just trying to finally pass it over and they're already checked out. So there's this flow to a conversation that you have to work with in the quick prop and then in the hone in. So the hone in we have is 15 to 30 words. So quick prop is 25 to 40, and then the hone in is 15 to 30, somewhere in there. Sometimes longer than you'd expect because you're kind of framing the question specific for them to answer a certain way, that balanced question. Not quite an open-ended question where you lose control, not quite a closed question where they can only say one thing, and it's a win-lose, right? Are you interested? Are you wanting to learn more? Do you want an appointment? So again, we're getting through the first few seconds so that they can answer in the direction that's going to lead the conversation longer. The next part is the bridge. So if they say, yeah, we're using something right now, or let's just say they say no, we're not using anything right now. That's then my bridge statement is, potentially only 10 words up to maybe 25. It depends. But typically I'm going to respond with no problem. Hey, that's why we're reaching out to companies like yours who haven't worked with an outsourced lead gen partner. If they say yes, then I want to, if they say, yeah, we're working with somebody, well, in that moment there, in that part of a conversation, it's interesting because they might feel like, okay, I'm getting out of this, right? Like, okay, well, I already have something, so I think we're going to end this conversation here. It's possible they would feel that way. But when we hear that you've used someone, we actually light up a little bit, maybe even sometimes more than when someone hasn't used something, because they have had the dream, the desire, the wish to use something like this. Okay, so I'm going to say if the hone in is, are you using an outsourced lead generation solution currently to help continue your growth, or have you considered it? And they say, yeah, we have used it. It just didn't work the way we wanted. Okay, that's good. I'm glad to hear that you see how this could be helpful. And we typically even work better with those who have something in place or have had something in place in the past. We're just a bit different and many times even complement what you're doing. So that's a lot of words, but it's appropriate in that situation because if they're feeling a certain way, we need to diffuse that feeling Oh yeah, we're good. Yeah, we've used something. It just didn't work. And they're thinking, okay, I can end this call. Actually, this is exactly, it's almost an objection when they say that and they say yes. So there's a little bit more work that we have to do to help them have a new perspective and see that this is exactly the type of person that we want to work with. So we say 25 to 50 words in the bridge statement, sometimes more, because again, it's acting like almost a response to an objection handle. And that is also why our calling prop, which is the third component, is a little bit less in our language. And this is where a lot of times uh, we can see an additional word vomit or pitch slap is here in the calling prop. Because now it's like, okay, they're still on the phone. It's our time to just let it rip. And I don't think it could be further from that idea. Because when you're in a calling prop in this situation, yes, it's your time to shine, as we say, it's your time to deliver your value. But just like in the quick prop, you want to get to that next question. This is a conversation structure. This isn't a speech script. This isn't a presentation. This is a conversation. So we have to be very strategic and be aware. And I remember listening to calls when we're identifying how many words should be in here. And there's a moment in conversations that you can hear from two perspectives. One is just from a listener. You don't even have to be the person on the other end of the prospect, because you were kind of acting as that person listening to a call, right? So uh, when a SDR is pitching and they say something like, hey, so what we do is we generate leads and appointments for you on a monthly basis. We can generate, surveys, nurtures, leads, and warms, and you'll get an account manager. And we have a lot of different options, and we have 30 USA based team members, and we've done all this type of work for these companies. And we're really just a unique company, and we're different here because we're all US based. You hear me just continue to just ramble, and there's a moment, and this is what's the most important. This is why we're having this conversation. There's a moment where you're like, oh my God, shut up. Just stop talking and let them take that in. And almost everybody we listen to with hears that moment, like, oh my God, it's too much. And this is just as a listener, not as the prospect, but just as a listener of the conversation. So what we've done is identified what's that moment. Is it 5 words, 20, 50, 100? But there's a moment in there that you see that you start to lose the prospect. And that's the other side, is that it's too much. The prospect starts to try and get off the phone. But if you can keep that attention that people have, and if you got them this far, then the ball has rolled into your court. It's you have more control of the conversation at this point if you've gone through the hone in. So it's even more critical to have your calling prop ready and delivered smoothly, concisely, and confidently to then get to the next question, the discovery cues. So once we got through the bridge statement, what we have, any guesses on the calling prop number of words? We just have actually less than the bridge. 25 to 40. 25 to 40 words. And it could change. We have these bullets that we write underneath the calling prop, depending on maybe how they've answered. Okay. And so that's why I would have maybe 25 words ready, and then maybe add 10 or so of a differentiating feature, tangible benefit, or outstanding accolade. So let's just say that, they say, yes, we've considered something like this, or we've used it. Hey, that's fantastic. I'm so glad that, you see the value of something like this. Obviously, there's some work to do to get you there, to be happy or to be satisfied. And I would transition. We're a little bit different. So the way it works with us is we help companies generate leads and appointments for their pipeline by making outbound calls and emails to their prospects on a month-to-month basis. And we actually have 30 USA-based team members, whereas, notice that you had said they were overseas. Then that's it. So the way it works is we help companies generate leads and appointments for their sales pipeline by making outbound calls, emails to their prospects on a month-to-month basis. And then I decided to use a differentiating feature. We have 30 USA-based SDRs that work for you. So including that tangible or the value prop trifecta option, we're more around the 40 or 45, but that is the idea. You have a very, very simple, quick calling prop that really breaks down the gap between value and results. How does it work? And that's where trust is built. The gap between value and results. Now we are back into our subcomponent of discovery cues. And if they're following our format at this point, then we can ask that. If they are curious or interested or give us an objection, which can happen here, then we have to revert to those parts. But getting back to our control of the conversation, if it goes off track, hey, what are you currently doing to generate more leads for your sales pipeline? Or have you heard about outsourced call teams? And these are questions that, can be 8 to 20 words, but get them back talking. And that's the critical element to the discovery cues. That law of reciprocity that is in the book Influence, and Jeff Blount uses quite a bit, discusses that idea around the law of reciprocity. If I speak, I naturally pause and give you an opportunity to speak. And then when you speak, you pause and are waiting for me to respond. And so we're trying to intentionally implant that in this conversation. So I ask a question, now it's your time to respond. Now, once that prospect is done, oh, well, we've used a company overseas, or we've tried this internally or something, this is what we've done, it's opening up, the conversation continues. And we can either talk a little bit more about us in the extended pitch, 15 to 25 word lines. If they're like, oh, well, we just never knew how to build our own lists. Well, we can build this for you on a monthly basis if you don't have access to data. Or we have our own copyrighted cold call method. Or each of our clients are assigned to an account manager. Just little nuggets that can help them see the value and build and construct an idea in their mind about how this could help them. Because I'm going to transition quickly into my next steps. So now that they've answered the discovery cues and maybe I've said one more line, then I can start to close, because again, the idea of this conversation and the next step, step 4, is to sell them on the next step and not the product or service right now. We're just in that initial phase. So the reason for my call is to see if you'd be available for a appointment, to see if this is something that could work for you and make sense for you. Be open to that. 25 to 35 words. The reason for my call is to see if you'd be available for a 20-minute Zoom call to see if this is something that could work and walk through your current strategy. Would you be open to this? So this ending here, where we're discussing the quantity of words, typically any component, as a rule of thumb, isn't going to go over ever 50 words, ever. And it shouldn't be until you give them an opportunity to speak, and then that kind of resets. If you wanted to use that as like your very simple trick here, now I can provide this document to give you a little bit of insight to use as a benchmark. But if you're going over 50 words in any component, some that's way too much anyway, but at 50 you're word vomiting, you're throwing up all over them. So stop at that point, see how many words, write down or listen to what you say on a recording, write down how many words you said and test it against this and try to trim those moments. Get the words as concise as possible to make the biggest impact in their mind so that in the quickest amount of time, so they feel the value and how you're going to be treating them the rest of the relationship. So that's why we've listed these limits, and we've seen the success of our team members by limiting this and keeping them to these word restrictions. So just for the sake of time, I will go through the no bull script quickly. So the no bull script, again, is a little bit different. If you remember this framework, this one is more about the the conversations in which we have to deliver a lot of value early, and then we ask them for an appointment because maybe we don't have time. Remember scenarios such as uh, maybe an auto mechanic owner underneath a car and he answers the phone, or we've seen this one for insurance companies calling truck owners, truck driving company owners, and we'll get a lot of times the owners are in the car and they don't have a lot of time, or it's hard for them to have a conversation, or those markets that are saturated, such as calling companies providing insurance, even if they're sitting behind a desk. There's certain scenarios where this makes more sense. So in this one, instead of a smaller quick prop, it's actually a combined quick prop calling prop, because we have to give them enough value to understand what we're doing. There's another side to it too, where it's too little. Hey, my name's Ryan with Superhuman Prospecting. Would you be open to an appointment tomorrow to learn more about us? Like, what? Who? What do you do? And sometimes people like to use that as a tactic. Honestly, let me just go back, and that is one strategy. It's not one that I subscribe to, but when you make the person question what you're saying to get them working and to get them, energy in the call. If you were to be elusive like that, you can get them to respond, but it's typically not in a positive way. And that's why we kind of stay away from that. It almost seems like a bait and switch. Oh, well, since you asked, what do we do? Let me tell you. I don't like that. Remember, the idea is to build trust, right? Not create this mystique that has some type of skepticism in it, so that we can respond and now it's our floor. It seems a little bit like a trick. Don't love that one. So when I look at this going back, to the no bull script, we have this quick prop calling prop where we need to say a bit more outside of just our quick prop, because in order to ask for an appointment, we need to have some type of value early on. So, hey, my name is Ryan with Superhuman Prospecting. We provide outsourced cold calling and appointment setting for companies like yours. We can help generate between 1 and 100 leads per month, depending on your industry, to help grow your business. I was calling to see if we could schedule a quick 15-minute call at a later date to see if we can help you, or at least point you in the right direction. Would you be open to this? So this first quick prop calling prop, similar between 35 and 60 words, not even that much more, but an extra sentence or so of value, and then asking them for that next step, which is 25 to 35, pretty traditional in the next step, right? Now, depending on how they ask that answer, if they say, yes, I would be, okay, well then just wrap it up. Awesome. How is this date and that time? What's your email address? Looking forward to work with you. Here's before we go, here's a quick qualifying questions I just need to make sure we get before, the call, so we can prepare appropriately. And that is around 25 words or so. So again, I will send this, but that's kind of the housekeeping closing details. But that's if they say yes to that initial. If they say no, I'm not. I don't really know what you guys. I don't really understand. It's too early. I got to learn what you do first. Then we drop back. We retreat to a hone in. So again, quick prop, calling prop, then next steps, HI, and then if they say no to that, then we have the hone in, which is just a standard hone in. This is where we kind of copy and paste from the consultative framework, because in this area we are focused more on in this area we're focused more on going back to a conversation. So no problem. Are you using a cold call solution currently to help continue your growth, or have you considered it? And then they can say yes or no, same amount of word quantity, 25 to 50, and then maybe 10 to 20 if they say no. And then it's the same thing with the calling prop. Same idea, right? And then we go back and essentially replicate what's in that consultative framework. So the real difference is in the beginning. Instead of saying, just 25, just 25 to 40, we're looking at 35 to 60, adding another sentence or so in the beginning to try and catch them with some value that would make an impact and make them raise their hand or be open and curious, and then asking for that appointment. So this is just a quick insight into the H to H script frameworks and what we teach our team members. You can hear, see, feel, and experience the results from respecting the time and being intentional about that. If you gain anything from today, it's being additionally aware of your prospects' time and how the words that you say and the amount of words that you say make an impact. That timing is so critical. This cold call is unlike any other that is in business. It's the only one like it, if you think about that. We have this kind of image in H to H that we call the business relationship timeline. And if you think of kind of a graph and there's a 0 and then a 1 and then a 2, then a 3 and then infinity. The 0, right before the 0, at anything past 0 is a relationship. You have some type of familiarity. Oh, I've talked to that person. Oh, I've seen that person. Oh, I've met that person. And then it turns into, okay, well, we had a meeting. It was a good meeting. I got to learn a bit about them and their business. And then it's, okay, we have a proposal out. We're considering them. And then we purchase, and then they're a returning customer, and then they're a lifelong customer, or they're a past customer. There's some type of relationship connection. But before 0, when you're a stranger, this is that we're in negative, right? We're like -1 to 0 because nothing's happened. So we trying to get over that 0 into a relationship, into something. And that's why it's so different. It's such a strange kind of purgatory to be in, because you're trying to figure out if it's going to work. And that's why people don't like it, right? But it's also where the magic can happen, where you can have complete control over the growth of your company by excelling and having your teams excel at this part of a business relationship. So I hope you got something from this today. This is way technical, super deep into our method, but taking this idea about awareness of your prospect and respecting their time, awareness of the words that you're saying. And I hope that you can take that and critique and sharpen what you're doing. And that's the whole point of this. If you're an SDR, if you're a manager, if you're a VP, or if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, limiting the words that you say has a massive impact on your prospects' willingness to reciprocate or build that trust with you. Thanks for joining, and see you next time.